Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2021 film Old. It's the M. Night Shyamalan film, and since it's a newer film, this is a no spoiler review, so you can watch this without having watched the film and then decide if you want to watch it, or if you've already seen it, it'll kind of mean more to you with certain things that I say with this. I will say up front, M. Night Shyamalan gets a lot of hate, has gotten a lot of hate for a long time, and I think one of the main deep-seated reasons for people hating on M. Night Shyamalan has to do with the fact that people love The Sixth Sense so much. It was good horror. It had a wonderful twist, and everyone wanted a repeat of that, and it didn't help that studios then, after that film, would bill every single one of his films in the trailers as like a straight-up horror film, and they weren't. You know, people hated Lady in the Water. People hated The Village because they thought, based off the trailers, they were going to be straight up horror, and they were not. Now, if you would take yourself out of that and watch them, I mean, like me personally, I just went in blank slate because I don't really watch trailers. I liked the films. Did I love the films? No, I didn't love them, but I liked them. I enjoyed them enough. And for that reason, I don't have the same hatred for M. Night Shyamalan that a lot of people do. Signs was a really good film. I didn't really like the reveal of the aliens in the end, but up until that point, I think it's a wonderful film. Devil even was pretty solid. It takes place in an elevator. He's done a lot of stuff. I know people kind of returned to M. Night Shyamalan once he put out Split, but then they were disappointed when Glass happened, which I haven't seen Glass, but Split was awesome. But anyway, this film, Old, came after Glass. After, I don't know if it did well in the theaters or not, but if you know, if you can put it in the comments. So Old was adapted to screen by Shyamalan and based on a graphic novel called Sandcastle by Pierre-Oscar Levy and Frederik Peeters. Um, so cool that it's being mined from source material. Kind of makes me want to check out the source material to see how different it is. And honestly, I think that this story is probably better suited for a graphic novel than it is for a feature-length film. That said, I didn't hate the film. It was interesting. I liked it enough, but I would not watch it again for a bunch of reasons that I'll go over. Now, I put a quote in here from M. Night Shyamalan when he was asked about why he chose the graphic novel Sandcastle to adapt to screen. And I feel this quote 100%. It's wonderful. This is what Shyamalan said. The book gave me the opportunity to work through a lot of anxieties I had around death and aging and things like my parents getting older. Definitely stuff that resonates with me nowadays because, you know, having health issues, I'm in my 40s now. My parents having a lot of health issues, you know, you think about that stuff. And so it's cool to see a film that has representation of that kind of lamentation of just aging in general and people's health conditions and how, you know, everyone's going to die basically. But I won't tell you whether everyone dies in the film or not. So let me give you a quick synopsis. May seem a little spoilery, but it's not because I'm just basing this off of what the normal synopsis kind of is. Basically, a bunch of people go to this resort. They are given the opportunity to go to this secluded beach at the resort that's very, very beautiful. And while they're there, they end up trapped. I'm not going to tell you how. They end up trapped, and they start to age at a very fast pace. I forget what it was. It was like every half an hour was like 6 years or something like that, but very, very fast. So you can just start to think, you know, where things might go from there. The family dynamic in this is very well established pretty immediately. It does initially focus on just a main family, and they are kind of the main focus, but there are a lot of other characters who show up in it and end up becoming very important. You end up learning a decent amount about them, which is important to the film itself, obviously. Early on, there are already a lot of instances of calling out societal focuses that aren't necessarily healthy. I think this film not only focuses on, you know, dealing with the idea of aging and the idea of death and the big one, ailments over the lifespan that people have and how a lot of people have a lot of different ailments, but it throws out a lot of other small societal things. I'm not going to go into what ones they are, but it kind of calls out a bunch of societal ills that we kind of had as far as like people's focuses on certain things that are just not healthy for us as individuals or as society as a whole. So I like that those are included as well. Certainly something that horror films do a lot of. As the film is moving along, you do start to wonder how they'll keep the concept like that engaging, and unfortunately for me, there were a lot of times where it didn't stay engaging. Now, one of the biggest problems being this film is almost an hour and 50 minutes. That's with credits and everything. It's like an hour and 50, or it's like an hour and 48 and some seconds. Um, it's way too long for what the concept is and what story is there. They really needed to pick up the pace. This is why I was saying it's probably much better as the original graphic novel. And, you know, as a lot of us already know, the source material usually is the best iteration of the story. So I would be interested to check out Sandcastle for that reason. But yeah, pacing issues are an issue. Once things start to progress, it starts to feel choppy as well. So there's this kind of problem where what is set up as far as people rapidly aging and how people physically change, how they mentally change, trying to represent that on screen. This was not an easy concept to bring to screen, I will say, so kudos for Shyamalan trying to tackle that. I think he did a good job, but I think there's still a lot of problems that come along with that because it's just a hard thing to do. It's very, very hard. And for that reason, with the aging and everything, it just starts to feel really choppy, and it starts to feel like interactions people have with each other and things that happen on the beach are just very, like, random in a sense. In some instances, there's kind of a reason for that, but in a lot of instances, it doesn't really seem like there is. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's a little hard to watch in that sense for continuity and, you know, just feeling like a cohesive film. The way the characters interact is like they're not reacting to each other, but rather delivering lines by themselves. It's kind of odd. It kind of like feels like this green screen-ish type thing. Now, maybe part of what it was at play was the fact that this film was going on during COVID times, and so people maybe weren't so much comfortable or used to being in close proximity to each other working on a film for a while. So maybe that played a role into it. I don't know. But it is weird because it really feels a lot of the times like these characters are not interacting with each other. They're just kind of like delivering lines to themselves in a mirror or something. It's very weird. I don't know if I'm the only one who sees that, but I'd be interested to know if anyone else does. Put it in the comments. Characters keep stating their professions in this film, which I think is weird, but I also think that there's a point to it. Like, kind of the idea of, like, why do we identify ourselves in that way? That is one of those kind of, like, societal things that's thrown out. But it made me really start thinking about it because it just keeps coming up. It just keeps coming up. And I was just like... The first, like, one or two times characters do it, I'm kind of like... I was just like, oh, okay. And then I was like, this is feeling a little odd. And then after that, I was just kind of like, okay, there's definitely got to be a point to this, because it's been done numerous times at this point. So that's what I think. I think it's just kind of calling out, like, we identify ourselves as our jobs a lot of the time, not just personally, but to other people, and that's how other people view you. Like, what is your value in society? It's based off your profession, basically, which is ridiculous if you think about it, because, you know, a lot of us, like myself, I work to live, I don't live to work, but there are people who live to work, though, and do want their job to define them, but I'm just not that person. There are some wild conclusions that actually end up getting drawn kind of out of nowhere, and this is part of that kind of like choppiness of the film and things seeming like they're happening out of nowhere. Like characters drawing certain conclusions, and you can't see how they would actually get there, especially not within the time frame that is passed within the film. So it's weird. It's just another one of those things that just doesn't feel right. There is a pretty interesting twist in the end. You know, going into it, I was kind of thinking, okay, they're on this beach, like they're all just going to end up aging out and dying, and then that's going to be the end, and we're not going to get any explanations as to what really went on here or anything like that. Not true. So I was very happy that that was the case. They actually give you a good twist, explain things at the end, so I was a fan of that. It actually really did increase my enjoyment of the film, so that was needed and executed pretty well. Although it does go a little bit long for what they needed at the end. In general, this film's a bit long. It's an interesting exercise in what people's lives look like from kind of like a macro view with an accelerated timeline. So if you kind of look at it that way and you apply it to your own life or start thinking about like humans in general, like what would it look like if you could just see someone's lifespan go really, really quick. And this kind of also just makes me think about the concept of how time passes and how I personally believe that it's experienced differently based off what species you are. Like insects, you know, like there are insects that only live for like a week, but for them that feels like an entire lifetime. So a minute for us, how it's experienced by those insects is very different because it's a much larger chunk of their overall lifetime. So, you know, it's just kind of, this is a thinking film, like not just from the standpoint of what's going on, but from the standpoint of it kind of just gets your brain spinning after the film's over, which is good. I do like experiencing films like that. So I'm glad this was done. It does make you think about how you need to enjoy life while you have it instead of trying to control what you cannot control. That is actually something, I'll be honest, that I do struggle with. I think a lot of people do in society because we're kind of supposed to skew towards perfection, and therefore we really try so hard to control pretty much everything. But in the end, like we're all going to die in the end. And what is it really about? You know, what should we really be focusing on? Because every minute that passes, every second that passes is gone. Like you're not going to get that back. So what are you going to spend your time doing or thinking about? And what you're actively doing or thinking about, is that worth it to you in the long run? Just saying. These are things that makes you think about. If people are aging at a rapid speed, shouldn't the film move much faster than a typical film? That's just me trying to be kind of funny, but also being kind of serious because the runtime was too long in my opinion, and the pacing kind of wasn't the greatest, but just trying to make a joke to a degree. But anyway, I enjoyed it enough. So out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. I was between 3 and 3.5, but I'm gonna put it at 3.5 because this concept is tough to nail, and I think Shyamalan did a good job for how tough this is. So kudos to him for trying, for really going for it, and coming out with a pretty solid product, in my opinion. So would love to hear other people's opinions on this. If you've seen it, go ahead and put it in the comments. I will say you can do spoilers in the comments, so if you're wanting to comment when you don't want spoilers, just don't read the other comments. So just know that. But go watch the movie, then come back, comment, and we'll talk about it, or just random horror stuff if you wanted to. Do me a quick favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That keeps me motivated. It is quick, it is painless, it costs you nothing, and it literally is your way to say thank you to me. If you like this video or any video I've ever done, also hit the notification bell button because then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos. And I'm doing 4 a week at this point, which I personally think is a good amount. Regardless though, I really do thank you for taking your time to watch this video. And until next time, keep it brutal.